welcome to Southend United Football Club's 1993-94 season. Ahead of us, the highlights of that season, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, and the tale of two managers. Pre-season friendlies attracted two of London's top clubs to Roots Hall. Chelsea first, Ricky Otto soon impressed them. Jason Lee's header easily saved though. A different story after the break. Chelsea down Southend's left. Paul Sanson unable to cut out the cross. John Cornwell just failed to prevent Chelsea's number 11 Schipperle from tapping in. Despite being under further pressure, Southend kept Chelsea at bay, a 1-0 defeat. Wimbledon next at Roots Hall. Long throw specialist Vinnie Jones doing what he does best, organising his teammates, and then the throw. It fell to number 8, Andy Clark. In it went from close range. But as regular fans will know, you can't keep Ricky Otto out of it for long. He was soon to be the target of many top clubs and proved his worth by setting up the equaliser and the answer with that final touch. Southend took heart from that. Gary Jones then prompted fullback Andy Edwards to gallop into the attack. No problems from Edwards. 2-1 to Southend. After the break, Southend had to face a lot of pressure from the Dons, but they managed to hold firm. On then to the opening First Division fixture, Nottingham Forest the visitors. Stuart Pearce received an early booking, then had to pick the ball out of the Forest net. 1-0 to the Blues, the ideal start. Brett Angel won the header, Andy Sussex bundled the ball home. Southend defender Pat Scully conceded a penalty. Not what the Blues fans wanted to see. Scully wasn't happy either. Pearce stepped up. United's lead taken away. Derek Payne then created a golden chance to win all 3 points, but placed his shot wide after doing all the hard work. And that was it. It finished 1-1 and a point from the first league game of the new season. Barry Fry we saw on the touchline then. He was to be the inspiration for the first half of Southend United's season, although he and Payne won't be happy with that miss. Pocket dynamo Payne was again in the thick of things as Barnet came to Roots Hall in the Coca-Cola Cup. But unfortunately, it was the visitors who found the net first. Tony Lynch, the scorer. Paul Sanson left to struggle. Obvious joy for the visitors then, and it wasn't to be United's night. Captain Keith Jones headed an own goal, and that made it a 2-0 home defeat. Back in the First Division and the opening league game at Millwall's new den. It was Millwall's big party and a 1-0 lead for the Londoners. Southend, though, were having none of it. Jason Lee equalised. He enjoyed that. Millwall were starting to worry about their party. Adam Lockett was with the corner kick. A good jump from Lee and a clean, firm, powerful header. Locke and Lee set up the next goal. Guess who scored? The first of many. Yes, it's Ricky Otto. Tommy Mooney pounced with a third. Not surprisingly, the big presence of Jason Lee unsettling the Millwall defence, and Mooney grabbing a real striker's goal. Southend totally ruined Millwall's party by winning 4-1. Otto's cross, and the answer heading in. A wonderful victory, and that really set the season up. No joy in the Coca-Cola again, though, away to Barnet, who had a lead from the first leg of 2-0. That was 3-0 at Underhill. And a consolation goal from Brett Angel merely reduced the losing margin to 3-1. Barry Fry, back at his old club, not the happiest of managers. Basically, he was cross. The smile was put back on his face and those of the Blues players and their fans during the home league game against Peterborough. Otto in the role of provider, Brett Angel with the goal. Otto's form on the wing simply mesmerised the visitors' defence, and the answer's shot was in and out so quickly it further confused the men from Cambridgeshire. Southend's victory was completed by a Jason Lee cross and the finest of Angel headers. A comprehensive win, United high in the early league table. It was good work on the wing from the big striker Lee, and a fine header making it 3-0 to Southend. United's unbeaten league run looked certain to end at the Hawthorns against West Brom when striker Bob Taylor gave Albion a 2-0 lead. The first goal coming from a thunderous volley, the second after a skillful run through the heart of the Southend defence. 2-0 and things looking bleak. But Brett Angel came to the rescue. First, the big striker converted a pass from Derek Payne. Then in the final seconds of the game, he grabbed the equaliser. Ricky Otto made it, but Angel's instincts must have impressed Howard Kendall. The Everton manager was watching and contemplating buying him. Away to Bristol City, Adam Locke guilty of giving away a penalty. Brian Tinian took the kick. Sammy dived the right way, but just failed to stop it. In the second half, United went further behind. Scorer Tinian took the corner. City's player-manager Russell Osman headed home. Southend, though, had the consolation of scoring the best goal of the game 20 minutes from time. Andy Sussex picked up the loose ball. He let fly from 22 yards. A 2-1 defeat, but United remained fourth in the table. It was their first defeat in 5 league games. Still on their travels, but this time at Kenilworth Road, and in the Anglo-Italian Cup, United took the lead with a real pile driver of a shot from Derek Payne. It's worth waiting for, I promise you. A super goal and one well worth seeing again. Ricky Otto, almost who else, the man taking the corner. And there's little Payne rifling the shot high into the roof of the net. The joy didn't last long, however. A Luton free kick, former England striker Kerry Dixon rising above Mick Bodley to head past the diving Paul Sansom. 1-1 the final score, but Southend's Italian adventure on the road. Blues league form was better, though. At home to Middlesbrough, number 11 on loan Harding was unlucky not to score. The post coming to Borough's rescue. And then Answer and Otto also went close. Then with the rain pouring down, Payne kept Middlesbrough out with a goal line clearance. And that seemed to give Southend some sort of confidence boost, because Otto then broke the deadlock. Bit of luck with the rebound off the keeper, but in the ball went for a 1-0 win. Slow motion replay shows that rebound, but 3 points for Southend, who moved up to third in the table. Otto was very much the man of the early season. And the flying winger struck again in the Anglo-Italian Cup tie at home to Watford. The scorer then turned provider out on the left wing. Otto's perfect cross leaving Jason Lee with a close-range header. He made no mistake. United's third goal was a real team effort. 4 players involved before the ball fell to Ricky Otto. His shot was blocked. The rebound fell to fullback Chris Powell, and his thumping first-timer flew into the net via Andy Ansah's head. 3-0 to the Blues, and they were through to the Italian section of the Cup. Mighty Fiorentina in Florence would be next. League action before then, though, and at Fratton Park, Southend went behind to Portsmouth in the 10th minute, John Durning the scorer. United levelled the scores 10 minutes before the break, though, Jason Lee's header falling eventually to captain Keith Jones. Durning grabbed the spotlight again shortly after the break, sent off for that foul on Gary Poole. Portsmouth, though, had the last laugh with the winner 3 minutes from time. Substitute Darryl Powell giving Southend their second defeat in 7 league matches. In the next game, away at Stoke, Keith Jones was sent off. Southend's 10 men rallied to the cause, and with 6 minutes left, Tommy Mooney scored the only goal of the game. After that one, it was back to Roots Hall. Tranmere Rovers, the visitors, both teams in the top 6 of the First Division, and first blood to Tranmere, Penworthy the scorer. United went further behind early in the second half. Muir with the relatively simple task of scoring. The one bright spot for Southend came 10 minutes from time when a cross from Ricky Otto was converted into an own goal by Higgins. Nonetheless, it was a 2-1 home defeat. United's next game followed a long trip to the northeast and to Grimsby Town, who took the lead with Paul Sansom given no chance to prevent the goal. And then controversy with Sammy. Jim Dobbin charges a Southend goal. Sammy rushes out to stop him and succeeds. A perfect penalty, no doubt about that. Referee Kevin Lynch decides it's time for Sansom to go. The game just 27 minutes old. A booking might have done, but Grimsby were left to celebrate the loss of Southend's keeper and the award of a penalty. United needed to rearrange themselves. Defender Howes went off. Simon Royce, the substitute goalkeeper, allowed on to take his place between the sticks. Clive Mendonca converted the penalty to add to his earlier goal. Poor Royce's first effort to pick the ball out of the net. In the second half, Southend's 10 men had no answer to the Grimsby attackers. That third goal from Gary Childs. Home fans delirious. Southend down in the dumps when Childs gets a second for himself to make the final score. Grimsby 4, Southend 0, and a long, sad journey home for the Southend players and their fans. An even longer trip next, but a most enjoyable one. From Grimsby to Italy, the city of Florence awaited United. Fiorentina's magnificent 55,000 all-seater stadium was virtually empty, but that didn't stop United's fans from enjoying themselves. Yellow-shirted Southend went a goal down after 8 minutes. Argentinian international Batistuta the scorer. Southend keeper Paul Sansom had a superb match. Without him, the score could easily have been 6 or 7 in the Italians' favour. As it was, goal number 2 came shortly after half-time. Batistuta again the scorer. And number 3 went in 10 minutes from the final whistle. Orlando the scorer, 3-0 the result for the Italians. Back in the league, Southend manager Barry Fry said before this game he didn't know where the next goal was coming from. It was worth waiting for. Ricky Otto's skill once again out on the left wing. Tommy Mooney with that wonderful volley. 3 minutes later, a Jonathan Hunt pass gave Otto the chance to turn scorer. He accepted it. And he then tried a new celebration with fullback Chris Powell. Goal number 3 followed a Hunt corner. Defender Andy Edwards with the header. And the game was effectively over just before half-time, where Mooney hit his second of the match after Andy Answer's shot was blocked. 4-0 at half-time and Southend coasting. But Oxford rallied after the interval, although they only punctured the Blues' defence once. David Penny getting the visitors' goal. That merely prompted Southend into renewed effort, and Otto got his second 1 minute later. A different celebration as he and Mooney took time to talk it over. They didn't chat for long. A further 60 seconds later, and Mooney completed his first ever league hat-trick. Southend have lost to Oxford on their last 6 meetings at Roots Hall. Revenge was sweet with this 6-1 walloping, Southend's biggest win in 10 years. United were then the First Division's top scorers and in 6th place. It took them just 4 minutes to get going at Barnsley. Brett Angel grabbed his 7th of the season following Gary Poole's long cross. As we saw, Ricky Otto bagged a couple of goals last time out. He repeated that feat in Yorkshire. His first came in the 28th minute. Otto later said he copied Arsenal's Ian Wright with this strike before introducing yet another style of celebration. Just how much practice goes into that? Otto's second followed 10 minutes later. Once again, his trusty left foot, leaving the Barnsley goalkeeper a helpless spectator. Watch for the celebration. They're getting it right. A good goal, this one, and Otto's 7th of the season. 3 up at half-time and the game effectively over, but Southend did concede a goal after having a penalty awarded against them. Skipper Keith Jones judged to have handled. Neil Redfern converted the kick, but a happy Southend returned south with 3 more points. It was Wolverhampton Wanderers at Roots Hall next. A tough game, but Blues took a 71st minute lead through captain Keith Jones. Celebrations this time, quite normal really. Hunt's cross and Angel's header set up the chance for Jonah. For 10 minutes from time, that good work was undone. The Wolves attack, Southend keeper Simon Royce out and upended the attacker. A penalty. Paul Cook of Wolves, the calmest man in the place, he converted the penalty, 1-1 the final score. So far in the season, Southend relied on the goal-scoring skills of Angel and Otto. The victory against Watford was secured by 2 players scoring their first goals of the season. In the case of Jonathan Hunt, it was his first league goal for the club, curving the ball past Simon Shepherd midway through the first half. Watford went close to equalising, but Paul Sansom saved with a spectacular leap. United took full advantage and, with the help of a referee's decision, extended their lead. With the linesman looking on somewhat puzzled, the referee decided Brett Angel had been pushed. Watford couldn't believe it, but a penalty it was. This time it was Gary Poole to step up. Bang went the penalty for yet another win. The Blues just 5 points behind leaders Charlton. Next league game in the Midlands, a tough one at Leicester. Southend a goal down after 9 minutes. Julian Joachim the scorer. Veteran David Speedy set him up. Joachim the quickest to strike. Goal number 2 came just before the break. A long ball found David Oldfield with time and space. He made no mistake. Then, for the third game running in a match involving Southend, we had a penalty, but not this time to United. Speedy was the man brought down by Gary Poole. Steve Thompson, the scorer from the spot kick. Southend a 3-0 defeat. That setback brought to an end a fine run of form which had produced 10 points from a possible 12 for United, but it wasn't the ideal result to travel to Italy on the back of. Cosenza were United's next Anglo-Italian Cup opponents. It was a warm, sunny day, a gentle breeze, and a defeat in Florence to avenge. The experience gained in that match should help United back in Italy, but how much had they learnt? Time would tell. Brett Angel was the man in form. He pounced to notch the opening goal. United held that lead until after the break. But they were then pegged back by a fine individual effort that simply flew into the United net. Angel wasn't to be denied, however. He rose to Jonathan Hunt's cross to powerfully head home the winner. Joy on foreign soil at last. Back home, Southend got off to a flying start against Luton. Gary Poole's cross, and Ricky Otto on hand to score. It was Otto's 8th goal of the season, and only 2 minutes were on the clock. Southend lost that lead 1 minute into the second half. Former England striker Kerry Dixon avoided the offside trap and ran on to shoot past Paul Sansom. Southend fought back though. They got the winner 12 minutes later. Gary Jones crossed to Jonathan Hunt. The young midfielder took his time to set himself up for the shot. Southend now up to 4th in the table. Confidence high, and it's back to the Anglo-Italian Cup. Pescara, bottom of the Italian second division and on their 3rd manager of the season. An accurate centre though from the visitors. A straightforward volley from Giuseppe Campagno. Southend a goal down. But it was the number 11, Frederick Massara, who caused all the danger. His cross set up the former Manchester United and Danish star Johnny Severbeck. Southend 2 down. Things got worse after the break. Antonio Nobile firing straight through the legs of Paul Sansom. 3-0 to the Italians. Southend's pride produced a goal for some consolation. A cross from Ricky Otto, a couple of half clearances, and eventually Jason Lee with the final touch. The 3-1 defeat left Southend with only a slight chance of further progress in the competition. Back to the league and the long trek northeast to Sunderland. Brett Angel's 9th goal of the season gave United the lead after Ricky Otto's shot had been blocked. Southend's defence kept that lead intact with good covering from a Sunderland corner. And then Ricky Otto's burst down the middle almost extended it. Otto just inches away with that shot, and it was more Otto magic that brought about a penalty. Down he went, no doubt about it, a spot kick. And Graham Bressington on hand to convert the penalty. 2-0 to Southend, still in 4th position in the 1st division. Next, it was on with the red shirts and away to the baseball ground to take on a Derby side that had won 7 of its 8 home league matches of the season. 4 minutes gone, Paul Simpson scored. Southend's pass looked even harder. But guess who set up United's equaliser? Once again, out on the left, it was Otto. Jonathan Hunt, the man to get United back into the game. After After the break, Gary Poole crossed for Gary Jones to give them the lead for the first time in the match. The third goal was a real cracker. It followed a corner, and Ricky Otto wrapped up the points to keep Southend's Premiership hopes very much alive. Joy for Southend with yet another start of celebration, but injury and sorrow for the Derby keeper. Into December, and a chance for United to avenge that 3-0 defeat at Leicester. Chris Powell set up a shooting chance, but Phil Gridlett's shot was comfortably saved. Then an opportunity for Leicester to shine. A good save coming up from Paul Sansom. David Speedie followed up and incurred the displeasure of the entire Southend defence. Throughout his career, Speedie's been dogged by controversy, but he was only guilty of trying to get the ball. The match finished goalless, Southend's first 0-0 of the season, but not before Sammy caused a flutter with a poor clearance. United, though, third in the table. That proved to be Barry Fry's last game as Southend manager. He left for Birmingham City to be replaced by former United favourite Peter Taylor. Against West Brom, the team looked to have given him the ideal start. Brett Angel and Ricky Otto built up the pressure. Derek Payne's shot was handled, a penalty. Up stepped Gary Poole. The chance had gone. From then on, things went from bad to worse for Southend and the new boss. 1-0 down, Ian Hamilton breaching the Southend defence. And almost before the cheering had died down, Bob Taylor made it 2-0 to the visitors. And then a real goal line scramble produced a third goal to give Peter Taylor a start he simply didn't want. A second home league defeat of the season and a drop of 2 places down to 6th in the First Division. The Blues then travel to Nottingham to take on Forest. Stuart Pearce involved as ever, and a fine save coming up from United keeper Paul Sansom to give the Blues a bit of confidence. But you couldn't help wondering if United were still recovering from losing Fry. They were unlucky to concede that goal, Colin Cooper's free kick taking the deflection, and Paul Sammy stranded. Southend fought back well, though. Tommy Mooney latching onto this chance, and unlucky not to score an equaliser. Forest, though, emphasised their superiority with the second goal after the break. Kingsley Black the scorer after Norway international Lars Bohinen set it up. Back in the Anglo-Italian Cup, Padova the visitors to Roots Hall, and the Italians a goal up after 18 minutes. United got level, but not until 10 minutes of the second half had gone. Gary Jones set it up. Jason Lee gratefully banged the ball home. 10 minutes later, and Peter Taylor's men were in the lead. Derek Payne's cross, Andy Edwards with the clean header. The Italians drew level following a free kick, a wicked deflection taking the ball into the net. But Southend simply knuckled down and mounted a storming finish. 2 goals in 2 minutes. Chris Powell out of defence. Gary Jones on the score sheet. Jones then move over to the right wing, cross for Ricky Otto to score. And that man Jones completed a marvellous personal performance with his second goal of the night to make the final score Southend 5, Padova 2. United would play Notts County in a 2-legged semi-final, a place in the final at Wembley at stake. Games over Christmas are invariably good fun, and this one was no exception. Chris Powell set up Southend's first goal against Charlton. His cross headed in by Keith Jones after 18 minutes. 17 minutes later, United increased that lead. Gary Jones headed on a goal kick. Jason Lee's pace was just too much for the Charlton defenders. But just before half-time, the Londoners got back into the game. It was a brave diving header. Carl Leeburn, the scorer. Yet again, though, more Otto magic. This in the second half. And a fine individual goal. 3-1 to United. And a victory looked certain. But a minute from time, Alan Pardew pulled a goal back for Charlton. And home fans were starting to worry. But still, it wasn't over. Jason Lee had a chance to make it safe. But his shot saved on the line, not by the goalkeeper. Phil Chappell eventually sent off for that handball. He was the third man to go in this game. Result of all that, though, a Southend penalty. Graham Bressington, the scorer, and a 4-2 victory for the Blues. Another tough derby match over the holiday period saw United at Palace. 1 minute to go and the only goal of the game. Simon Roger, the man getting the last touch. A tough night for United. They played well, but only to go home empty-handed. And so to New Year's Day. And after all the pre-match hype, Southend let their football do the talking against Birmingham and United's former manager Barry Fry. Keith Jones put the hype to one side to give Southend the lead just before half-time. Jonathan Hunt produced a lethal volley to make it 2-0. Not surprisingly, United's players were delighted. Jason Lee wrapped up the match soon after. Celebrations a touch muted at first. Some doubt as to whether Jason Lee had fouled the Birmingham defender. The referee eventually giving the goal. Fans and players delighted. United won by 3-1. Birmingham goal came after some careless work in the Southend defence. But never were 3 points so sweet. New manager Peter Taylor 3, old manager Barry Fry 1. Next game on the calendar, away to Notts County, Meadow Lane the venue. United behind after 36 minutes. Mark Draper, the man on target for Notts County. No wonder they were delighted. They hadn't won any of their previous 5 league matches. 4 minutes into the second half, Southend captain Keith Jones showed his team the way. Tremendous shot from all of 30 yards. And that's the way to celebrate. The joy wasn't to last until the final whistle, however. United's annoying habit of conceding late goals cost them dear. A messy, muddy goalmouth scramble. Dijkstra, the Dutch defender, got the final touch. A 2-1 defeat for United. Southend United back in blue and feeling blue. Just 52 seconds gone in the home game against Bolton, and Alan Stubbs giving Wanderers the lead. Bolton put the game beyond Southend's reach in the 65th minute. John McGinley, the man on target. Not a good day for United. The day at Oxford wasn't a good one either. Although goalkeeper Paul Sanson enhanced his reputation with some fine saves in the first half to keep Oxford at bay. He later got injured. Substitute Simon Royce went on. He conceded the opening goal to Nicky Cusack 5 minutes after half-time. United fought back. They always do, it seems. Jason Lee set up Southend's equaliser 7 minutes later. Gary Jones, the man on target. The joy didn't last, however. Cusack again on target. He got the winner for Oxford 9 minutes from time. January means FA Cup third round. United away to Luton, where they'd drawn in September in the Anglo-Italian Cup. Kerry Dixon had tested keeper Simon Royce in the first half, but Royce had no chance after the break. Telfer, the man on target, to give Luton a 1-0 lead. Southend out of the cup for the first time of asking. It wasn't for the want of trying. Late pressure meant Gary Jones had a couple of opportunities to at least get a draw, but it wasn't to be. No matter how many times we see it, the ball just won't go in. League action once again, and United took a first-half lead against Grimsby at Roots Hall. Jonathan Hunt set up the move. Ricky Otto headed the ball in. Yet again, another style of celebration for the flying winger, Ricky Otto. Almost from the restart, though, Grimsby were level. Gary Croft's hopeful punt into the penalty area wasn't cleared. Jim Dobbins' fierce volley sailed past Simon Royce. Not surprisingly, that knocked the stuffing out of Southend somewhat. Grimsby built on that and scored a late winner through Steve Livingston. Southend sliding down the table, down now to 10th. But things were going better in the Anglo-Italian Cup. Semi-final first leg, Southend at home to Notts County. United's confidence boosted after just 5 minutes, the ideal start. Andy Edwards headed on Jonathan Hunt's corner. Phil Gridlett bundled the ball in, his first goal of the season. United's victory, though, was a narrow one. They gave away a penalty on the half hour. Captain Gary Poole judged to have handled the ball from that cross. No matter how many times and how loudly the players protest, very few referees are going to change that decision. Gary Lunn stepped up to take the kick. Southend keeper Simon Royce became the hero of the night with a fine save. Southend's 1-0 lead preserved. That wasn't the end of the action as far as Royce was concerned. He had to be on his best behaviour and at his most alert to make that save. Could Southend make a Wembley final? One thing, though, was certain. In the league, they were struggling. A goalless draw seemed on the cards for much of the game at home against Barnsley. Jason Lee pulling a fine save out of visiting keeper Lee Butler. With a quarter of an hour to go, he was at it again. Ricky Otto's cross met firmly by Adam Locke, but the score stayed at 0-0. As the Blues fans' thoughts drifted to the journey home, Southend got themselves in a mess. Nick Eden produced a drive of his own to shock the Roots Hall faithful. 1-0 to Barnsley, and just 5 minutes for the Blues to save the game. They didn't help themselves. Gary Poole committed a foul for which he was sent off. Neil Redfern imposed a major punishment. That goal put the Yorkshiremen 2 up. The collapse of Southend was complete in the 90th minute. O'Connell broke clear and seemed to have done enough with the neat body swerve and shot. But the rebound was kind for Andy Rammell, and he made sure. 3-0 to Barnsley, United's 5th successive league defeat, and they slipped to 12th. The next game was a real tough one. Wolves away in front of 23,000. But Gary Jones scored Southend's winner, the only goal of the game. The Anglo-Italian Cup semi-final finished 1-1 on aggregates. United out on penalties. Gary Poole had his kick saved. Paul Sansom kept one of County's out, but Graham Bressington fired wide. Out of the FA Cup, so a friendly with Southampton. United took a second-minute lead. Jonathan Hunt, the calm goal scorer. That lead lasted just 13 minutes. Then, goalkeeper Paul Sansom was judged guilty of bringing down Ian Dowie. Some might say the forward dived a little. Local referee David Axel didn't agree with that, and a spot kick it was. Matt Letitia converted it. That was his 24th goal from 25 penalties for the Southampton star. A slip towards the end by United keeper Simon Royce allowed Dowie the simplest of tap-ins. Southend defeated, 2-1 the score. Back to the league, and Southend at home to Bristol City. Gary Jones almost gave the Blues the lead. He saw his shot come bouncing back to the keeper off the inside of the post. Right on half-time, sloppy defending by the Blues let in Liam Robinson. He fell in the penalty area. Wayne Allison picked up the ball to slot in the winner. Allison somewhat confused about which way he was running, but he knew he'd scored. In the second half, an amazing incident. Look how far that man was out. There's the ball hitting the bar. Sammy says thank you. Next game up, Millwall at home and Southend taking the lead following a Gary Poole corner. Jason Lee headed on. Andy Sussex, the man on target in the 11th minute. There's a lot of rivalry between these two teams, always has been. United almost added a second. Ricky Otto's cross. Jason Lee, the man to watch. First shot hits that post. Rebound comes back off the other. Millwall took full advantage. They grabbed an equaliser before half-time. That too followed a corner. David Mitchell squeezing the ball past Derek Payne. No further score. The draw ended Southend's worst ever home run of 4 successive defeats. But United had dropped alarmingly down the table. At the turn of the year they were 5th, now down to 12th, and in trouble when Ken Charlery gave Peterborough the lead at London Road. On the stroke of half-time, United fell further behind. Tony Adcock with the header. Looking at the United defenders, they didn't seem to quite know what was happening. Tony Spearing's goal, the third for Peterborough, left Paul Sampson wondering what had happened to his defensive wall. United's despair only matched by Peterborough's joy. United's only success followed a penalty award. Some doubt from both teams as to what it was for. Referee Kelvin Morton clearly said, pushing. Gary Poole failed with his initial kick, but reacted well to convert the rebound. The 3-1 defeat dropped Southend to 13th in the table. Southend's next match was a truly historic one. Portsmouth at home in the 1000th League and Cup match to be played at Roots Hall. Portsmouth, though, threatened to ruin the party after just 6 minutes. Jerry Freeney on target after Paul Wood's shot had bounced back off the bar. United bounced back quickly. They took 8 minutes to get back on level terms. Gary Poole's free kick, Andy Edwards' header, and on loan Peter Beadle forcing the ball in off Andy Orford. Beadle was on loan from Tottenham Hotspur, obviously happy to claim the goal on his home debut. But the goal of the game, or possibly the season, gave Southend the 3 points. Andy Sussex with an instinctive volley that gave keeper Alan Knight no chance whatsoever. The 2-1 victory was Southend's first home league win since New Year's Day, and they climbed up the table to 10th. But United were brought back to earth at Middlesbrough. They started well enough, Ricky Otto charging through the home defence to bring a good save from keeper Stephen Pears. United couldn't sustain the pressure, however, and they gave away the only goal of the game, Paul Wilkinson with the final touch midway through the first half. Back to Roots Hall and Stoke City, United's next opponents. Stoke on the rampage, keeper Paul Sansom very much the man of the moment. 2 saves in quick succession, reflexes as sharp as ever. Only one real chance for Southend to score, Andy Edwards going close in the second half. A rare result, only United's second goalless draw of the season. Both Tranmere and Southend had chances at the end of March of making the playoff places for the Premiership, but this was a big game for both teams. First blood to Tranmere, Goal poacher supreme John Aldridge giving them a lead after 4 minutes. It was Aldridge's 19th goal of the season. United basically dominated the second half, but it wasn't until the final minute that they equalised. Steve Tilson's shot partially saved, Andy Sussex on hand. He gave United the point. Southend went one better in the next game, registering a home win over Notts County. Leading scorer Ricky Otto hitting goal number 13 of the season for Southend to earn all 3 points. No real celebration this time, just an energetic run. The next game saw United at the Valley against Charlton. United found themselves 3 down to the Londoners. South London club was seemingly cruising to victory. Southend didn't seem to have a chance. But the Blues showed tremendous character in a fight back. Jonathan Hunt grabbing their first goal after 65 minutes. 3-1 then, and it stayed that way until 6 minutes from time when Andy Answer shocked the home fans with 2 goals in the space of 3 minutes. They put Southend back on level terms. No wonder Answer and his mates delighted. But any thoughts of taking home a point were cruelly dashed by a last-minute winner from Alan Pardew. That gave Charlton victory by 4 goals to 3. From one lot of London opponents to another. When Palace beat United in London, Southend was 6th in the table. At the time they met at Roots Hall, United had dropped to 14th, but they were getting back to being a fighting team. Ricky Otto was one of those players leading the way. He was regaining his early season form. He was proving a threat to anybody. And Jonathan Hunt was growing in confidence with every game. But Southend went behind to a typical Palace goal. Eric Young is lethal in such situations. His header just fired into the back of the net. Palace, the league leaders, paid tribute to Southend, saying they didn't expect a figure in any tougher matches. When Jonathan Hunt equalised, it seemed Southend might breathe new life into their own playoff hopes. Southend fans certainly believed they were witnessing something special again. Long cross from Chris Powell, up with the header, good close control from young Hunt. Packed crowd at Roots Hall, certainly enjoying that one. But Palace just had the edge. 19 minutes from time, Chris Armstrong helped them move 3 points closer to automatic promotion, back to the Premier Division they'd left the previous season. Chris Armstrong had been well marked throughout the game. He's the sort of player you have to mark for all 90 minutes. Southend's new fighting spirit kept them going. No matter how they tried, they couldn't get an equaliser. United's slide down the First Division continued at snowy St Andrews, where Neil Doherty's first half strike rocked the men in red. The second goal for Birmingham delighted Barry Fry, who was able to savour a victory over his old club. Birmingham went 3 up to add to United's gloom. Not even Graham Bressington's penalty could lift United. They're down to 16th, the lowest place in the table of the season. Still in their red shirts and up at Burnton Park, 7 minutes gone, Mick Bodley the scorer with his first goal of the season. That lead was extended just before half-time. Bodley headed forward. Ricky Otto provided yet another cross. And Andy Answer on hand to squeeze the ball inside the far post. A vital victory. It moved Southend 3 places up the table to 13th. A disastrous opening for Southend in their next game. Dennis Bailey straight in to put Watford 1 up. It got worse. Tommy Mooney, on loan from Southend, rubbed salt in the wound when he scored the second in the 11th minute. Three minutes later, yet another goal, and some poor defending, letting in Colin Foster. 3-0, not good news. The drop from Division 1 now threatened. United were hovering on the relegation zone. They were 9th from the foot of the table. Sunderland were their next opponents at Roots Hall. The goal at that end saw two close chances, first from Southend, then from Sunderland. It looked likely to be another 0-0 game. United's best chance, though, fell in the second half to Gary Jones. A good run, but denied at the last by a brave goalkeeper. In truth, Sunderland had more of the game. The winner they'd threatened for most of the match arrived in the very final minute. Martin Smith, the scorer. Southend's worries would continue. The way the other results went, though, meant Southend were basically safe with 2 matches to go. They really had very little except pride to play for at Kenilworth Road against the Luton side still in the thick of the relegation battle. Ricky Otto's goal brought the drop that much closer for Luton. Over the whole season, Otto has been most impressive. Time and again, rumours were around that the big clubs were after him, but he stayed at Southend and enjoyed scoring at the end of the season as much as he'd done at the beginning. For Luton, the goal that gave them their lifeline was controversial to say the least. Hartson's header ricocheting off the post, and according to the referee, over the line. A 1-1 draw, the final score. Southend's 1993-94 season finished with a home game on a Sunday, Derby County the visitors. Didn't start well. Paul Simpson put Derby in front after 3 minutes. They were celebrating. Southend and the big crowd were not. But that soon changed when Andy Anser sprinted through the offside trap 5 minutes later to level the scores. Anser had a good season. He, his teammates and the fans must rue the fact that he missed a lot of it with injury. Just after the half hour, he struck again to give United a 2-1 lead. Much joy with his colleagues, and perhaps thoughts of what might have been. As for Derby, they'd already made the playoffs, so no real surprise when their relaxed football saw them bounce back through Tommy Johnson. But Southend weren't to be denied on this final day of the season. Just before half-time, they were awarded a penalty. Phil Gridlett, the man chasing, handball, said the referee. The responsibility of the kick fell to Andy Sussex. No problems at all. Surely that's the way to hit a spot kick. Seconds later, Ricky Otto latched onto Anser's cross to make it 4-2 and celebrated in style. Derby did get one other goal, but United were victorious by 4-3. They finished 15th in the table. Vice-Chairman John Adams sums up the season with the manager and with 3 of United's star players.
Another season come, another season gone. You're still there, you've kept him out, and we've had the highs, we've had the lows. What sort of a season has it been from your point of view?
I think you're right, it has been up and down. We were very strong up until Christmas, and we looked like within a great chance of being there at the end. You know, things have changed in the last 5-6 months. You know, staff has changed and manager has changed, and we've played, you know, played a bit differently perhaps. And things haven't gone as well in the second half of the season. away from that, though, overall, I think we've performed well. Maybe could have been better in the end, yeah.
I suppose from a goalkeeper, one thing that you've been glad about is that at no stage of the season have we ever been anywhere near relegation trouble.
No, I mean, it's somewhere you never want to be as a player, ever. I've been in there once before and been relegated on the last game of the season, and it's the worst feeling you could ever have.
Interesting this year with the substitute situation for goalkeepers. Very interesting perhaps for you as a goalkeeper to comment on young Simon Royce and the season he's had.
Yes, he's a good keeper. He's young, keeps me on my toes. I think it's good for clubs to have two keepers that close to the first team all the time, because it's good for competitiveness, and Simon's done well. He's done very well.
And of course, one of the innovations Peter Taylor's brought in is that you now have a goalkeeping coach as well, which is a bit special.
Yeah, we have him. Joe Sullivan comes in once a week to just take the keepers purely for goalkeeping, and that's I think a good thing that should happen at every club.
Ricky, first season at Southend United, was it like this at the Orient?
No, I consider this season a lot more better than Orient, you know, because I've been a lot more consistent in my performance. When I was at Orient last year, I played only 18 games. The year before that, 24, you know, so this season's been a very testing time for me, you know, and I'm glad to say that I've come through okay. I feel that I've had a good season, and I'm relatively happy with the way things have gone.
Putting you on the spot, the high point of the season personally, can you remember one thing in the season you think, oh, that was my moment?
The footy fully. Going to Italy.
Going to Italy. We enjoyed Italy, didn't we? Talk about Italy just for one or two. You enjoyed that bloke with the hammer in Cosenza, didn't you?
Yeah, that was my birthday, funny enough, as well, you know, but no,
it was near your funeral.
Yeah, that's right, you know. But looking back on it, I mean, being the first time I'd been in an aeroplane, you know, being at a new club, experiencing new things like playing in Europe against a good side like Fiorentina, you know, it was more than likely my best highlight so far. I mean, scoring goals is great, yeah, yes. But that was good for the Southend Football Club, you know, because it took Southend a long way.
Chris Bell started the season left back, ended it up left back, but captain as well. Been a funny old season, Chris.
It has, yeah. We've had a few ups and downs, but we finished it off in style, you know, against Derby. We've had our problems, but I think we're getting there now. And it's unfortunate the season's ended now after Derby today, but next season it'll be good, and Pete Taylor will get everything right. We've got everything together. I mean, it takes time to gel and get the right formation. And I think in the end, Pete got the right formation, but we just ran out of games. So basically, we done well at Luton, like you said, and finished it off again against Derby. So next year, I'm sure the fans will have some high hopes again.
Peter, I suppose really the thing is you started the season watching Southend United Football Club for the reserves when you were at Hendon. You ended up the manager. It's been one of those years.
Yeah, I think that it's always my ambition, John, to come here to be manager. It's been a tough start for me. It's a tough introduction of managing a league team. But it's something that I've enjoyed, although it's been very hard, and I'm delighted to be here. I think that we're in the same situation as a lot of other football teams that you mentioned Charlton earlier. Any teams that haven't got a recognised striker that's going to score 25, 30 goals will always have runs the way we had. So that's my main job in the summer, is to find two strikers, at least one that can get 25 goals and perhaps the other one that can get 12, 15 to help him on his way. I think that I'm looking forward to next year. I'm looking forward to having a pre-season with the players that we start in July, and I think we're going to be okay.